Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Sergio, because you made me read a lot about bioplastics the last 2 weeks. No, it's a very, I have to confess, I was not concerned about bioplastics, but now I am. So, so thank you, Sergio. This is what Sergio asked me. This course about littering. Why people trash plastics and everything else instead of collecting appropriately and converted it into it. And my first answer to Sergio was, I have no idea, because I don't know. So I start to search in the literature to see if I found some information. This is for plastics. Sorry, it's in Portuguese, but it's the fraction of plastics in the composition of residues. And differently from the overall waste that we saw in the first presentation, we see that Italians and Brazilians used to waste the same quantities of plastics. And then I went to the literature about bioplastics. And there it's not so simple, because we have bioplastics for engineering, bioplastics for one use, that the ones that we are very worried about, bioplastics that are made and compete with food, bioplastics that are made from agricultural residues or agriculture industry residues. So there are so different points of view and so different aspects to explore. I found a great number of articles dealing with the bioplastics, but most of them are solutions of how to produce a new bioplastic or a new resource to produce bioplastics. So the great, in the Journal of Chemical Production recently, I found 47 documents, and most of them proposing solutions for new bioplastics or LCAs, life cycle assessment. I highlighted these two ones that are in agreement with Francesco. There is no standard. So every LCA you do brings new results that are not comparable with other LCAs. So it's very difficult to say if the bioplastic is really bad or the bioplastic is really good, because we have all kinds of results because LCAs are not standard. When I went to littering, I see this one. I was really disappointed, because with littering in the test, there were just 5 articles, and they not talk about littering. They talk that littering exists and occurs some way and some time. But most of the articles are worried about the upstream of the bioplastic. If they compete with land use, if in the part of agriculture they emit more CO2 than the oil, or, and this is important, depending on the part of the world that you are, the quantity of water use. So the most concern is about how to produce these bioplastics, and if production brings more negative effects than normal plastic. I don't know if plastic is normal, but the traditional plastic. In Brazil, we have, because of agriculture is very strong, and they saw an opportunity to produce bioplastics, there are lots of LCAs talking about producing bioplastics. And I have to say that most of them conclude that the production of bioplastics brings more harm than oil plastics. But they always tie the bioplastic with the discussion of compostable and biodegradable. So they say that the production has a large footprint, but if well treated, or if this plastic can go with the organic waste to be compostable, then the overall effect will be more beneficial. But there is no there is no agreement about this in the literature. Summarizing, the literature, or the part of the literature that I deal with, it's more concerned about producing, the effects of producing these bioplastics, new materials to produce these bioplastics, and so on. There are some articles about new business models that can use bioplastics, but they are still incipient. And about littering, nothing. So I have to answer why people trash everything everywhere. So I went to the general literature, and I see that there is not big news about this. They try to educate people with propaganda. They have proposals. This one from Germany, this one above, talks about how can you reach the public. So if you have to be more, if you have to be lighter, if you have to use humor, if you have to be authoritative, or someone. The other one that talks of marine pollution is the only one I found that brings importance to the social networks that are very important today, and would, in theory, reach the public easier than the TV or the traditional ways that we are used to make propaganda. This one is very interesting because they interviewed people and asked why you trash things. And people say most of the people said that it's because of the lack of infrastructure. So there are no bins, there are no easy places to put the waste. So that's my reason. And when they were asked about why other people trash things, they say that's because they are ignorant, or because they have a problem, and these things. So people behavior is a very difficult thing to interpret. We had a very famous campaign in Brazil in the 70s. This was Sugismundo, that we would translate as in English to filthy guy, in Italian as sporchino, or something like this. And this is another approach that I perceive, is because it makes people ashamed of trashing. So it's not to inspire people or to instruct people, but made people ashamed of trashing. So it worked a lot, and everybody in my generation want not to be a Sugismundo. So it worked. And then I found this article that shows, or tries try to show the overall. And one thing that was very interesting is that we have to educate the consumer to trash, in littering issues. But when you think about the complexity of the system and that, according to them, the consumer, the final consumer, sees just a little piece of all the system, that the production, the transport, the raw materials used, the emissions. He sees sometimes my place, he sees the transportation, and maybe if he is educated, he sees the end of life of the plastic, the bioplastic. So there is a lot of, there are places and places and places where we can, and when I say we academics, we industry, we government, we institutions, that we can interfere before the final consumer, the final consumer. So this is my opinion now. We have a lot of opportunities to prevent the arrival to the consumer of these materials that we, industry, government, academics, we know that will be discarded, and we know that will be in the hands of someone that sees only part of the system. We have opportunities to this. Literature is, and Europe especially, has circular economy that can prevent the waste to arrive in the hands of the final consumer, or circulating everything, or circulating in parts of the system. This is out of the hands of the final consumer. This is with us, institutions, governments, and so on. We have more drastic solutions in literature. We have degrowth, that industry will not like it, because, or economists will not like it, but we can shrink the system, use less materials, consume less, and so we'll have less trash, less plastics, less microplastics, and less everything. So this is another solution. And another one, if we think that this consumer is well educated, well instructed, he can adopt sustainable and responsible consumption that will shrink the system, that will degrowth economy, that will degrowth industry, but will solve the littering problem, or will help a lot. Thank you.